Welcome to the lecture on cast metal restorations. Topic learning outcomes for this lecture are to discuss the indications, contraindications, advantages and disadvantages of cast metal restorations, describe the tooth preparation for cast metal inlay and onlay, and describe briefly the restorative technique for cast metal restorations. As the name suggests, cast metal restorations, we use different types of alloys to prepare these cast metal restorations. The most preferred is high gold alloys followed by low gold alloys. We also use palladium silver alloys and base metal alloys for the fabrication of cast metal restorations. So this is a picture of gold inlay made up of high gold alloy. When I say high gold alloy, the gold content inside the alloy is more than 90%. This is a picture of a ceramic inlay. So before we go into the definitions of inlay and onlay, which are the different types of cast metal restorations, let's look at the difference between an indirect and a direct restoration. A direct restoration is a restoration in which preparation and the restoration is done in the patient's mouth during at the same appointment, whereas an indirect restoration, the preparation is done, and after the preparation, the impression of the prepared surface is taken, sent to a lab for the fabrication of the restoration. Fabrication returns from the lab, and then you cement the restoration in the patient's mouth. So usually it is done in two appointments, whereas the direct restoration is usually done in a single appointment. So in uh, the cast metal restorations can be an inlay or an onlay. If you go look at the definition of an inlay, inlay is a restoration which involves the occlusal and proximal surfaces of the posterior teeth and may cap one or more cusps. Okay, if you look at the definition, it says may cap, so it may or may not cap cusps. Okay, but not all cusps. Whereas an onlay involves the proximal surfaces of the posterior teeth and caps all cusps. So if you look at the picture of an inlay, okay, it is involving the occlusal and proximal surface here, but it is not capping any cusp. Okay, it may cap the cusp but not all cusp in an inlay. Whereas an onlay, it involves the occlusal and proximal surfaces and cap all the cusp. So the picture here is of an premolar, so it is capping both the uh, buccal as well as the lingual cusp. Whereas in an inlay, it is involving the occlusal and proximal surfaces, but it is not capping any cusp. If it caps either the buccal cusp or the lingual cusp. Coming to a crown is again a cast metal restoration also. So here it involves the entire surface of the tooth. Okay, it covers the entire surface of the tooth from all the sides, that is buccal, lingual, mesial, distal, all the surfaces, and extends up to the gingival margin. So that's the difference between a crown as well as an onlay. Coming to indications of inlay and onlay, they are usually indicated when there is extensive proximal surface caries in the posterior tooth. These restorations are good alternative to amalgam and composite restorations because of its high strength and control over contact and contour. Because they are prepared in their laboratory, you can control the contact and contour, and they are metal restorations. They have got higher strength compared to amalgam and composite. These restorations are good alternative to crown when the facial and lingual surfaces are relatively unaffected. Onlays not only withstand the occlusal forces but also distributes over the tooth. The intact facial and lingual enamel in inlay and onlay are conducive in maintaining the health of contiguous soft tissues when you compared with crown, which are usually in contact with the gingival margin. Root canal treated molars and premolars can be restored by inlays to strengthen the remaining tooth structure. Tooth requiring extensive restorations with a green stick fracture in enamel and dentine can be restored with inlay and onlay. The metal inlay and onlay can brace the tooth with these green stick fractures against further injury to prevent fragmentation of the tooth. Inlays and onlays can be used to maintain and restore interproximal contact and contour and for occlusal plane correction. These are also can be used when extension of mesodistal dimension is required to build up the contact area with adjacent tooth. As these inlays and onlays are fabricated in the lab, these indications of restoring the interproximal contact and contour, occlusal plane correction, increasing the mesodistal dimension of the tooth are possible. They can be used in posterior tooth with heavy occlusal forces and in cases of attrition. Inlays and onlays are usually preferred when you are restoring abutment tooth of removable partial denture because they provide better physical properties to withstand the forces imparted by partial dentures. The contours of recedes, guide planes, other aspects of contour related to partial denture are better controlled when indirect technique is used. The contraindications of cast metal restorations are these cannot be used when aesthetics are of prime concern. I'm talking about when mainly the cast gold inlays, okay, low gold, high gold inlays, and metal inlays, where silver, palladium, and base metal inlays. But I'm not talking about ceramic inlays and onlays here. Okay, so cast metal restorations cannot be used in anterior areas because we don't want the metal to be shown. These are contraindicated when the patient says that he cannot come for multiple visits. Patient cannot afford a cast metal inlays. Multiple surface involvement is there where full crown is indicated. The advantages of cast metal restorations are they are of very high strength, biocompatible, usually exhibit very low wear, and you got excellent control of contact and contour. Disadvantages: the number of appointments are more, requires high chair time. In between the appointments, you require temporary restorations. The restoration usually on expensive side. It requires more technique, so it is technique sensitive. Inlays may cause splitting forces on the tooth. So let's go into the principles of tooth preparation for cast metal inlay first. Preparation path. When you are preparing a tooth for cast metal restoration, you should make sure that the preparation has a single path of insertion. This path of insertion should be opposite to the occlusal load and parallel to the long axis of the tooth. An inlay preparation should have a taper. This taper should be slightly diverging from the gingival to the occlusal forces. The line of withdrawal is prepared by a cutting instrument which should be kept parallel to the long axis of the tooth, and thus the preparation develops a line of withdrawal. This line of withdrawal also describes the path of insertion and removal of the casting. It has got it is actually the axis of the taper. Usually the taper for an inlay and onlay is 2 to 4 degrees. Circumferential tie is the design of the cavo-surface margin of the inlay tooth preparation. This usually marks the junction between the tooth cement inlay and it is the weakest part of the cast metal restoration. Thus, the margins of the restoration should be designed in such a way that they achieve maximum adaptation to the tooth surface. The various burrs used for preparation of tooth for inlay are number 271 burr, number 169L burr, and 8862 slender fine grit flame shaped diamond instrument. So if you look at these burrs, okay, the number 271 and 169L burrs, you will see that the as the burr goes from the tip to the shank, the width of the burr increases. Okay, so in 27 burr, the tip is 0.8 millimeter. As it goes towards the shank, there is a slight taper of 2 to 4 degrees. So it is actually from the tip to the shank is slightly diverging. Same with 169L burr, 0.5 millimeters at the tip and slightly diverging as it goes towards the shank. Number 271 burr is usually the length of the burr is 3 millimeters, whereas 169L burr, the length of the burr head, I'm talking the burr head is 5 millimeters. 8862 burr is a diamond with fine grit diamond, flame shaped fine grit diamond. Okay, so when you're preparing a tooth with inlay, you don't have to actually bend the burr. Keep the burr parallel to the long axis of the tooth during the entire preparation. Because of the shape of the burr, you get a tooth preparation which is slightly diverging. Okay, usually the divergence is a 4 degrees because of the shape of the burr. So this is line of withdraw. So during the entire preparation, you keep the burr parallel to the long axis of the tooth. So you get a slightly diverging wall which is about 2 to 4 degrees. This line of draw and this divergence is very important because after the preparation it enables you to take an impression as well as see to the restoration after it comes back from the lab. So there are different tooth preparation features we give during preparing the tooth for an inlay and onlay. These are called as bevels and flares. A bevel is an inclination that one surface makes with another when they are not at right angles. The main reason of giving bevels are to form a metal wedge of 30 to 35 degrees at the KO surface margins of the preparation. It also enhances the chance to achieve a closure at the interface of cast gold and the tooth. It forms a strong enamel margin, okay, so that prevents from breakage. Feature of preparation for inlay and onlay are flares. These flares are concave or flat peripheral portions of the facial and lingual proximal walls. There are two types of flares which are given during the preparation. They are primary flares and secondary flares. So if you look at this picture, you can see the flares, primary flare and secondary flare. These flares are the extensions of your KO surface margin on facial and lingual surfaces of the preparation in the proximal area. Extending from the KO surface margin into the embrasure area are called flares. So what is a primary flare? Primary flare is a basic part of circumferential type. It is like a long bevel and is directed 45 degrees to the inner dentinal wall proper. These are usually indicated when normal contacts are prepared and when there is minimal extension of caries in the buccolingual direction in the proximal area. Its main function, it removes weak enamel, improves the junctional relationship between restorative material and the tooth, maintains a good marginal seal and brings the facial and lingual margins to cleansable and finishable areas in the proximal area. Whereas the secondary flare is a flat plane superimposed peripherally to primary flare. We don't usually give secondary flares, usually we may restrict with primary flare. If we extend more into the embrasures, okay, and prepare more, these are called as secondary flares. They may have different angulations, involvements and extent depending upon the requirement. Secondary flare is usually not given in areas where aesthetics are of more importance because we don't want to we don't want the metal to be exposed. Okay, usually in the mesial areas of upper premolars and the first molar, we may not give a secondary flare. Indications of secondary flare when the contacts are very broad to include falls present on facial and lingual surface beyond the primary flare, when the caries are widely extended in the buccolingual direction, and to include any undercuts present at the cervical aspect of facial and lingual walls. Secondary flares are indicated. The advantages of secondary flare encourages self-cleansing margins because it is extended into the embrasure. It permits easy finishing of the restoration, allows better burnishing of the metal, produces more blunted and stronger margins. Let's look at the picture of the primary and secondary flare again. As I said, the primary flare is an extension of preparation from inner tooth preparation wall of facial and lingual surface extending into the embrasium. Okay, those are called flares. Flares can be primary flare as and secondary flare. Primary flare is a first extension. If you extend more the flare more into the embrasure, it is called as a secondary flare. Primary flares are usually given. Secondary flares are usually given only if there is broad contact areas are there, or there is a requirement to remove caries or remove undercuts, then only secondary flare is given. Okay, so I'll take the remaining lecture on inlay preparation, specific inlay preparation and onlay preparation during the next lecture.